Hello again, and welcome to Winning with the Wrangler at Dick Powell's Leadership Corner, brought to you by Earth, Wind, Fire, Water, Training and Development, where our passion is building leaders of today and tomorrow. Leaders, I'm going to start off today with, well, it might sound a little funny, but it might not. It's called being right versus being wrong. Now, I'm going to tell you what, many times in my life, I thought I was right, but I was not quite correct. Miss Robin always made sure I knew when. But you know what? There's a big difference in today's world. This thing of being civil to one another when we have a conversation. Now, I have to tell you, I really enjoy sitting around the campfire or around the boardroom and discussing things that somebody says right, somebody says wrong. And I have to tell you that we've been enjoying it for a long time. But what I've learned is sometimes when I think I'm right, I'm wrong, and I learned something. Now let's look at this together. You see, we all, excuse me, we all do the best we can to make sure we are right. Are we only right in our own minds? That's the first question. And does it really matter? Do we arrange ourselves around others who are in the same right? You know we do. We like to be around others who do believe like we do and kind of get down and do things we do the same way. Do we stay away from those who we think are wrong? I think we do that too sometimes. And I think that's really not a good way for us to be. I think that we need to be looking at each one another with some respect. And that respect, I believe, comes from taking time to listen to one another, by golly. And I don't think that's a big enough deal. Now, here's the question that comes up, though. Who has the authority to say what's right and what's wrong? Guess can't seem to get this hat on right today. What's right and what's wrong with the way I'm putting it on? I'm sure I'll get some corrections on that. Now, this thing about authority, you know, it's about integrity, trustworthiness. And the thing is just because I say it's right or I say it's wrong, is it? You see, I believe that when we start making decisions, we start making decisions on the way from the way we grew up, on who we grew up with, who we heard, maybe who we didn't hear, maybe the books we read, maybe the professor we listened to. But as we start doing that, we start making judgments. And I tell you what, judgments on things is different than judgment on people. So is being right more important than understanding the other person's way of thinking? I'm going to repeat that because it's quite deep. Is being right more important to you than understanding the other way the person is thinking? You see, I think that's what it all boils down to. We boil it down to my way the highway, or my way is right and your way is wrong. Why does that have to be? Why can't there be some kind of middle ground? Why can't there be some kind of civil listening to one another to really learn from one another where you come from? You see, I grew up thinking collecting wild eggs was a good thing. But I've learned from other folks that collecting wild eggs was not a good thing. I grew up growing, our own beef cattle, and then we'd come to time to slaughter them and put them in the freezer or serve them up on the table. And I've learned that other people think that's not a good thing. But I believe there's some middle ground that we all can come to. I don't believe it has to be right or wrong. I believe there can be some middle ground. But there are some things that are just wrong. The 10 Commandments are just right. I'm good with that. I've lived my life, my whole life by living the 12 points of Boy Scout law. You know, trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. And I found that pretty much that they were pretty much guidelines and guide stones around the way. But first of all, we have to understand that we all come from different backgrounds and we all look at the world through different lenses. In order to understand where someone is coming from and why the other person believes the way they do, you must first build some kind of relationship of understanding. Now, in my time, I've met some people that I thought I totally disagreed with. That we just were going to be at loggerheads at everything we did and every time we moved. But you know, as I came to know the person, where they grew up, how they grew up, that the different things that have happened to them as they were going through life, I found that we had some common denominators. And even though we disagreed on some things, we still could be friends. And we could still have those discussions and still walk away and give each other a handshake. You see, that's the difference. But I want you to look at the second component here. You see, second, there has to be a trust component. Okay? And that trust is to ensure each person is listening, thinking, and not just responding. Boy, have you ever been with someone who halfway through your discussion just jumps right in and gives their side of the house? They don't even let you get done. They don't let you finish your thought. And when they do that, you kind of screw you up because they're listening only to answer. Now, I have to tell you, sometimes when I'm listening to folks, I have to take a few quiet moments and kind of digest what they've just said and play it against how I was raised, how my different thought processes, try to understand where they're coming from, and how do I put that into my thought process so I can make a decision. So many times we spend our time preparing our answers, we really do not hear what the other person is saying, and I'm going to encourage you not to do that. Yep. Stephen Covey said, seek first to understand before understood. I think that that's a huge one when we start thinking about this, right versus wrong. And it's not the thing is right versus wrong, but it's wrong thinking. Is my thinking better than yours? Do I have a better background than you? Did I go to a better school than you went to? Did I? You know, it just doesn't matter. What matters is how we ended up. We evidently came together to discuss something for a reason. And that reason very well might be to find out a solution. Now, if we're just going to take and say my way and your way and never try to have a discussion, I mean a true civil discourse discussion, by golly. I mean, let me get all of it out there on the table. Let you get it all out on the table. And then we can discuss what we just were talking about. You see, that builds such a different peace. But in order to make that happen, you have to have that relationship first. You have to have that trust that you're going to both have this kind of discussion first. You have to build that type of bridge so when you start out a discussion that might be a little bit controversial, that both of you agree right from the start that you know, you might not walk away with the other person's thought process. You might not even understand, but you're going to give it your best to listen and discern and try your best to understand before you open your mouth and say something dumb. You know, my grandfather, he'd always say something really, he was way ahead of his time, and I hope I am too. But he always said things like, you know, it's better to take and be quiet and let them think you a fool than open your mouth and prove them right. So this thing of being right and being wrong, is it so important to you that you're right and they're wrong that you can't even listen? That you can't even consider something different? I'm going to tell you, if you find yourself in that situation, you need to stop. You need to stop, walk away. You need to say, hey, can we get back together at a different time when I'm in a different frame of mind? You see, I'm not ready to listen today, and maybe tomorrow I can get into it. Now, I'm going to tell you what, there's a lot of thinking that goes on right there. You see, the question, this whole thing came up to me as I was sitting listening to a speaker on stage. He did his best to explain the difference between right thinking and wrong thinking. And I thought to myself, man, I grew up in a different time and place than you, and your right thinking doesn't seem to jive with my right thinking. And I thought to myself, he's going to say that I'm wrong thinking. And that started to really bother me. So I waited until after he got all done and he came off the stage and we were back having coffee and people were asking him questions, and I waited my turn and I said to him, I said, where'd you grow up? He said, well, you know, I grew up in the city and most of my life we lived in a high rise and you know. I said, well, that's good. I said, you know, I'm glad you did that, and that's a good way. I said, I grew up on Dead End Street in a swamp, and your right thinking is not my right thinking. And so I'm saying, I'm asking the question, is what you're saying is I'm all wrong and you're all right? Well, he thought about that for a moment. He said, well, Dick, I guess I'm going to have to go back and rewrite that whole piece, aren't I? I said, well, I'm going to encourage you to, because depending on where we grew up, who we grew up with, how we grew up, you know, this right thinking and wrong thinking could be different at every right turn and left turn. He started laughing and I started laughing. And the thing that we came to was, there's always something, there's always some way to find a bridge between the two of you. Even when one of you thinks theirs is right and yours is wrong. But it's just thinking. It's not actions. And when we take and put it in the actions, that's a different story. I love this piece of being right versus being wrong, because, you know, I don't think everyone is ever totally right, and I don't think anyone is totally wrong. So when you start thinking about that, you start getting caught up in it, stop and think about it. Just start thinking about it. As we were looking at today's program, we were looking at this all right and all wrong piece, and I came across something that I'd written quite a long ago, but it kind of fits right into this a little bit. It was called, "Are You Just Changing Your Skivvies, or Are You Changing the World?" And it really boils down to is right thinking, wrong thinking. But as I listened to this other person, you know, I love going and listening to people because I learned so much. But as I listened to this person talk to us one day, how everyone was changing the world. Everyone was changing the world by what they were doing or not doing or should be doing or could be doing or ought to be doing. and I wondered, what are the people around me doing to change the world? I started looking around and thinking to myself, well, what are they doing? I know what I'm doing. I'm writing books and speaking on stage about accountability and leadership. Well, that's changing the world. The difference is you can't even do anything unless you put action to it. Okay. So when I asked myself, you know, what am I doing? I just put some thought to it. Now I hear people all around me all the time complaining and whining that someone has to be done. Someone has to do something, and something needs done. Well, I understand that, because I know that I'm somebody, because most nights my loving wife says, I wish somebody take out the garbage. And, well, it's usually me, so I know I'm somebody. It seems to me that ones that speak the loudest are the ones that do the least. Have you ever noticed that? That's that 97.3%. 3% do most of the work, and 97% just kind of watch. They never do more than just change your skivvies. And I sure hope they're doing that, and that's a true thing in itself. You see, every day I get up and I ask myself, what am I doing to improve myself and those I interact with? See, that's a big question, isn't it? Changing the world first takes a commitment to a cause that you feel passionate about. A commitment to a cause that you're willing to devote time, talent, and resources to. I got a question the other day. They said, Dick, we're having a trouble. We're having a lot of trouble. I said, what kind of trouble are you having? They said, we're having trouble people joining and getting involved in our nonprofit organization. And this nonprofit organization has been around for a long time. I mean, over 100 years. They said, what are we going to do? We can't seem to bring people in. We can't seem to hold them on. I said, well, they're not committed. What would make them committed to the cause? Do they really believe in what they're going to do? They said, we're going to put some thought to that. Once they went back to their original vision and mission of this organization, they had people starting to get excited about what the original cause and vision was. And the original cause and vision was helping people help themselves achieve their dreams and desires. Now it all became all about helping other people. And people love helping other people, believe it or not. They'd really rather help someone than sit around. I truly believe that. Now, I'm going to tell you, changing your skivvies is, I hope, a daily routine for you. One that you know is good for you and those around you. And therefore, the question is this: what in the world, what in my world needs changing that I can have an impact on today? You see, I can only have an impact if I get up and get doing. I met a young person today when I was out walking around the block, something I like to do. And as I met this young person, they were raking the yard. And as they were raking the yard, I said to him, I said, hey, how's it going? They said, well, we're doing really good. We just moved in and we're getting the house all straightened up. And newlyweds, brand new opportunity. I said to him, I said, well, if you need anything, just come on down. I've got tools and woodworking, and I've got all sorts of stuff. What can you do to have an impact on today? Simple impact of letting that young person know that down in my workshop, he could build something that needed done for the house was huge to him. For me, it was just a little bitty deal. He showed up later that day with a thought about building a bookcase, and of course I had all the wood, I had everything there to do it, so we just built it up. How'd that change his world? How'd that change his wife's world? How did that change the world for them around them? I don't know. I know for me, it made me feel good that I could help somebody. And I hope that that's the way you're doing yourself. Who are you helping today? Not thinking about what you're going to get back tomorrow, but who are you helping today get to where they want to go, achieve their dreams and desires? You see, I believe that thing Zig Ziglar said. He says you can have everything you want in life if you help enough people get theirs. I truly believe that. But I believe it needs to come naturally. And if you have to be intentional about it, do it for a while. Be intentional about it. Good Turn Daily seemed to be something I grew up with. But I have to tell you that I'm always concerned on how do I encourage others to come along and get side by side and get involved? How do I raise awareness to the problem and bring the solution? I find myself asking those questions all the time. Miss Robin finds me reading books and studying and giving lectures and going out and doing hands-on training with people. And she said, when are you going to stop? What's going to take for you to stop? And she knew the answer. When they can no longer push the wheelchair across the stage is when I'll stop. There's more to it than that, though. If you're just changing your skivvies and you're not helping someone else achieve and help them with their dreams and desires, just what are you doing? How are you adding to the society? How are you adding to the world? It's the little things that will build this country back to where it was at one time. Back to when someone had a problem, the neighbors pitched in, or someone you worked with pitched in and got done. I remember a long, long time ago, I started off as a lineman, and we moved into a real old house, and it needed a new roof. Started leaking. And you know what? I went to work one day and I was telling the guys, I said, gee, I'm going to have to patch the roof again this weekend. We really can't afford to put the whole thing on, but, it's just going to have to be done. Come Saturday, these guys had gone down the street from where our work center was and talked to the owner of the shingle company who made the shingles for the roof into kind of giving me a advance so I could afford to do this. And these guys all showed up and ripped the old roof off, fixed all the parts and pieces, and had the new roof on by the end of the day. Boy, I don't know if that happens anymore. I really don't. How are you changing the world today? Is it so important that you're right that you can't help someone who you feel is wrong? Is it so important that you're right that you can't even see the other side? That you can't even stop and take time to try to build a relationship before everything is broken and unrepairable? Are you just changing your skivvies, or are you changing the world? Leaders, I know I talk a lot about it, but I do this every single day. Every single day I go out in my community and I'm always looking for things that I can be of service to people. It could be helping someone get a ride to the hospital. It could be helping someone pick up their children from school or whatever it needs to be. Or Miss Robin, I make meals and take to somebody who can't get out and shop. It's those little things. It's those little things that we do to change the world. It's the kindness. I believe it's this being civil to one another. As leaders, being kind and civil and trustworthy and true and loyal in our company, with our employees. Because it's not just about our employees, it's about them and their families. And how far does that reach down the line? It's about being trustworthy and loyal and helpful to all those around you. When you say you're going to do something, you do it. They know that they can trust in you, that no matter what happens, that you'll be there. That you're loyal beyond a shadow of a doubt to your organization, to your family, to what you tell me that you're going to be loyal to. And you're helpful to all. Helpful to all. Now, there's a big difference between giving and helping. Okay? If you're just giving things out with look, I want you to take and help with no expected return. But I don't think you can just give someone something for free and not teach them or something along with it. It goes back to that piece of give a man, teach a man to fish and give a man a fish. Give a man a fish, he'll eat for the day. Teach a man to fish, he'll eat for life. It's a big difference. So what are you doing to change the world? Some of my best friends write books. We get involved in the community. We speak on stage. We help out young people. We put our money where our mouth is. I love it. And you know what I love most? I love most when I'm putting my money or someplace where somebody doesn't even know they're getting it. And they don't even know my name. And I don't want them to know my name. But I surely get a big smile on my face when I see the smile on their face. No doubt about that. So is it so important for you to be right that you can't help someone you think is wrong? Is it so important that you're right that you're going to fight instead of find out from the other person? Man, oh man. I'm telling you, leaders, if we can do just a few simple things, we can change the world. If we start treating each other with more respect and kindness, if we start looking at the other person from where they stand and from where they sit, if we truly try to understand and walk a mile in their moccasins, we might feel the pebbles that are underneath their feet. If we truly do those things, will being right be our only thing that we're trying to do? Will being right be our only direction that we can possibly move in? Or will we take time to build a relationship, to do our best to understand where that person comes from and how they got there and what brought them to their decisions that they made? Then I believe we can change the world. Leaders, if you see someone who is just sitting around is waiting for something to happen and waiting for others to do for them, encourage them to get up and do something. Action is the attraction. Action begets motion, and motion is what makes things happen. We can't help those who won't help themselves. I understand that, but I do believe we can try. We can try to put out the information in the right hand, and if it's a couple bucks, we can try to do all those things to help. But on the other hand, it's their decision to whether or not to accept. So is being right so important to you that you look down on other people? Is being right so important to you that it's only your way or the highway? Is being right so important to you that you do not or will not take the time to understand those around you? Are you changing the world? In order to change the world, we first have to change ourselves. And by changing ourselves means that we have to live by a set of discipline rules and opportunities. And the first one is being trustworthy with one another, being loyal to one another, being helpful to one another, and courteous, civil with one another. Now, I hope you understand but today that just, are you being right or being wrong, and are you just changing your skivvies? Ask yourself, what are you doing to change the world? On behalf of myself, Dick Powell, and the whole Leadership Corner team, we want to say thank you for being a part of today's program. Our hope is that you've received a nugget of wisdom and guidance that will help you build your leadership ability. Now, if you have any questions or comments on today's program, send me an email, dick@leadershipwrangler.com. dick@leadershipwrangler.com. You know what? Set your very own appointment with us at our website, www.leadershipwrangler.com. www.leadershipwrangler.com. You know what? If it's burning, you got a burning question right now and you need it answered, give me a call. 727-422-1833. 727-422-1833. And until next time, this is DW the Wrangler saying, ride hard, ride fast.